And we've got a panel now to speak and to give a bit of a personal testimony as to what living in a community of that sort is like. So let me introduce them briefly, and then what we're going to have, we'll be starting with one of our panelists, and we're going to get a bit of a free-flowing conversation going back and forth between the four of them, taking care to make sure that everyone has a chance to describe his or her story and experience in the community, and then we'll open it up for questions to everyone here who has questions about any specific aspect of it. So our four panelists first is on my immediate left here, Karen, who is one of the founding members of the L'Arche Wave Crest community, which is in sort of North Orange County. It's a relatively new one. You'll hear the story about it. When I first moved back to Los Angeles in 2001, 2002, I was actually looking for a large community in the area to see if I could teach a course where students would be able to help in that community, a little bit like the course you're all in right now. And at the time, there wasn't anything anywhere in Southern California, which shocked me because that's not the case back east. Yeah. Sitting next to Karen is Kathy Acton, who's a core member in the community. To her immediate left is Kimmy Smith, who's an LMU alumna. Yay. And who's also been living in community. Well, this was your second person? Second one. And to her immediate left is Chris Friedman.
Hello.
A founding member of the community as well. So why don't we go ahead and start, if we could, Karen?
Yeah. So just as Brian was saying, he was very surprised that there wasn't a large community, and at that time there wasn't. And yet still to this day, people don't realize that there is a L'Arche, even though it's almost 15 years old. So, and even before the community opened in 2004, it took 12 years for the community to get started. Wow. That's quite a long process, because what happens is that only large communities really found large communities. And in this case, it was the founder, her name is also Karen Carr. She was in France and came back with the vision to start a large community in Orange County. And so she would talk to anyone who would listen in her church and other churches, and got people who were interested, and then kind of founded this committee. And then within L'Arche, there are different regions in L'Arche, and there's one in the west. So they had to send people down to kind of check out the group to see, well, they're saying they want to be large, but do they have the spirituality? And so they got to know the group, the founding group, what would evolve into the board later. And another reason it takes so long is the property is so expensive in Southern California.
True.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, you know that, right?
True.
Yeah. And in order to open the house, it has to be licensed. And the license doesn't go with the organization, it is tied to a particular house. So when the house moves, what happened? You need a new license. And it's kind of this catch-22. You need enough funds in order to buy the house, but if you don't have any money coming in because there's no one living there. And so all in all, it took 12 years. And then there was that big date, July 3rd, 2004. What happened?
Terry and I moved in together.
Right.
Wow.
You moved in together.
What do you remember about that day, Chris?
It was a special day.
Yeah. And how did you come to find out about L'Arche?
My mom and dad.
Tell us the story of how that happened.
Yeah, please.
Okay. Yeah. I knew something about L'Arche, and I didn't know what I was getting myself into.
When you found out about L'Arche, where were you living?
In Oregon.
In Oregon.
What part of Oregon?
Near Eugene, Portland, and Seattle.
Ah.
I remember Chris's mom telling me that their family relocated to Orange County just so that he could come move into that L'Arche. They had been living in Oregon for a while.
And so I can be close and be reunited with my sister.
Yeah, because his parents were living in Oregon, that's where they wanted to retire, but then there was an opportunity to move into L'Arche, right? And then they decided to relocate so that when later on you'd be close to your sister.
Yeah. I almost wanted to say, throwing you out till mom's not gonna work.
Why do you say that?
I didn't believe in it.
What do you mean?
I mean, it's not gonna work. No one's gonna. I felt afraid, and then I had to think long and hard. So my mom and dad said, think it over. So I had to think it over, and it was a tough decision. But I said, okay, Mom, Dad, you gotta do it. Let's go. Let's go for it.
And I can still see it in front of me, how your mom and dad came and with your furniture, and there we are, and loading everything and getting your room ready, and
Yeah.
and Terry came, and then
She was we were both upstairs.
right.
She had her room, and I had my own room, and
Is this in Peacock?
yes.
Peacock
Yes.
Lane, that's the
And,
name of the Fullerton.
Bulletin, then when Terry and Jason were starting to play were getting ready to play Hoop Stars, and I said, I think I can do this.
I don't think people know what Hoop Stars is.
It's
Yes.
a basketball league that I belong to. So I've been in for 15 years, almost 15.
Wow. And then we needed to, well, early on, we moved. The owners of the house
Yeah.
decided to sell the house. And there was also only room for 3 core members and there were 2 assistants. So we knew we wanted and needed to expand.
Yeah.
And then we bought a house in Orange. And then we found
Maplewood.
2 other people.
And I was one of them. But the one who came before me was Cindy Hine. Even though she gave it her best shot, she found out it wasn't for her. But she's happy living in an apartment on her own. So, all good things happen for a reason. All things happen for a reason. There was a reason for her, just like there was a reason for me. I think, for what it's worth, let's see, I'm originally from Ohio. I was born there, but I came out here when I was 13 months old. And I didn't come exactly peacefully either. No, let's just say I was more or less, well, probably kicking and screaming in a way. I couldn't talk yet. So, and when you just learn to walk, and I had when I was 13 months, I didn't want to sit in my mother's lap. In those days, you did not have traveler's planes. You've had business planes and nothing else. Well, Mom and I were in the plane. I was on Mom's lap. I wanted to get off her lap and run around. She kept holding me tight. So, let's see. I kicked one business guy, and Mom turned me around, and then I kicked the other. I'm sure my mom had one heck of a story to tell my dad. Of course, I was told this. Anyhow, I came to Abraham House / L'Arche Wavecrest on Sunday, the 8th of July, 2007. And, you know, that's when I moved in. How I learned about L'Arche was Mom and Dad took me over to the house on Peacock Lane, where they would have it on Wednesday nights, once a month, and I think it was the second Wednesday, was it?
Could be.
Could be. Well, anyway, anyway.
But you knew some of the others, right?
Yeah, so I got, so I got a chance to meet the others, Terry, Chris, Jason, Rosales.
How did you know Terry and Chris before you moved in?
Before I moved in, they went to school with me. They started going to Hope, which is where both Chris and I go to during our day. And, and we did quite well together. We seemed to have been the right formulation. After getting a good idea of what L'Arche was from the community nights, then Karen Carr, and then Karen Nuremberg decided to kind of like thinking, do you think she'll go? Do you think we should have her here for a weekend? And I said, okay, sure. So on Memorial Day weekend, I go to Peacock Lanes, to the L'Arche house there. And it was near the railroad tracks. I remember that. Cindy was there also. So we two got a chance to be with each other and get to know each other a little. And from there, we were over. Of course, the funny thing was, there was also ants crawling around in the house. I got the better sleeping place, by the way. I was on the sofa. She was on the floor. So I was free from ants, she wasn't.
Oh, was I.
And let's see, what else? Oh, yeah. Then, Gilbert tells me, oh, we're going to Victorian Gardens. I'm thinking, oh, great. We're going to go to a Victorian garden and smell some Victorian flowers and go and look at beautiful flowers. I end up finding that I was lied to. Because by the time we got there, all I saw was a lousy pair of gray, boring buildings. It didn't look like a garden at all. I said, hey, what is this? This is not what you said it was.
Lo and behold.
As in liar, line, pants on fire, dangling from a telephone wire, right? Well, right there I figure, okay, since we're here, we may as well see what we can find in the stores. So, I remember we had a good time. I think we went into Barnes and Nobles, wasn't it? Or
Could be.
Borders?
Probably because someone else here loves books.
Yeah.
Me?
And I remember getting a French-English dictionary.
Wow.
And I still have it, by the way.
So what about the person who's sitting directly next to you?
Well, Kimmy didn't come till a lot later in my life. But she is a very good friend.
Do you remember remember the exact day I moved in too.
Oh, God, help me.
Kathy's really good with remembering exact days of things, and she has an amazing memory, but I guess that one just wasn't that important to her.
Well, I do know that I set the room up for you.
You did.
I did set up the room up for you.
I moved in September of 2017, like about exactly a year ago. And I was just coming back from doing a year with the Jesuit Volunteer Corps with L'Arche in Mobile, Alabama. So after I graduated from LMU, I decided, I had actually met Terry, who was a Corps member at L'Arche when she came to tour LMU. And that's when I decided I wanted to do L'Arche. And I did it through JVC. And then a year later, I moved back here because this is where I'm from. And I decided to move into Wavecrest. And then I remember that day, Kathy had set up my room really nicely and made me a lot of gifts and decorations for my bedroom. And
Managed to go down to the pantry, get a whole basket worth of snacks. Find one English china in there, which was I think it was Princess Anne, I do believe.
I still have it.
And yeah, I'm surprised you didn't take the little teapot with you.
Yeah, I left that one there for the next person.
Yeah, okay.
So I recently moved out of the community about a little less than a month ago, but I'm still.
Take a look at the sparkler! Isn't that amazing? She's engaged to a wonderful guy.
So I recently moved out, but I'm close by, so I love being a friend of L'Arche, and it's just a great community. And after you're there, you're like family, whether you're an assistant or a Corps member or just a visitor. It's always like family, so I always feel welcome there.
Yeah. And I hope you have enough pictures to remember us by.
I do. We can still take more.
Yeah. Anyway.
Maybe I've got a question for you, and we can start to open up to people. I wonder if each you could tell us something that you really like about living in the L'Arche community, since you all chose it at different times and for different reasons. Like, what's one of the things you like most about living in the community?
I'm traveling with these guys to up north,
Where did we travel to this last summer?
Seattle, Washington. I've been there in 10 years.
So we get to travel a lot for regional gatherings for L'Arche, is where all the L'Arche communities in our region gather. So
Get together.
yeah, get together for a lot of fun. And Chris was in charge of a really important aspect of it this last summer. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
I was part of the L'Arche Inclusion Team and the L'Arche General Assembly.
Yeah. So Chris was working on how we could make L'Arche across the entire USA.
Globe.
And the globe, yeah, more inclusive. Like,
Right.
how can we welcome assistants and Corps members that are more diverse? And he's been working really hard on that for the last few years.
And I like what I do, and I'll keep on doing it.
I can give you a good idea, Chris.
What?
Advertisement, radio, television. People love television.
What's your favorite thing
Okay, Kathy, I'll give it a shot.
about living in L'Arche? Or what?
My favorite thing about living in L'Arche is it's a family-oriented atmosphere. I've been in other homes. God, I can't tell you just how many homes I've been in. And they lacked the feeling of family orientation. They're all business-oriented. But L'Arche, it's different. In fact, I remember being in Switzerland while visiting my sister. And for what it's worth, I couldn't help but feel this tranquil feeling when I walked into this certain type of store. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what it was. I couldn't name it. But I felt at peace, which was something new because in most stores, you don't, for what it's worth. And I think for what it's worth, I probably didn't know it at the time, but I just bet I was in a large store. Because I'm sure behind there had to have been people in the back room probably making things. And, I could only see it in my mind's eye, of course. But there you are.
So for me, it was something similar as for Kathy and, who all was there for the movie, but when Jean Vanier originally went to the institutions and brought people, and then when he was asked to take over the institution, the other people left, and all the violence that was going on there. So before I came to L'Arche, I studied social work, and I worked in an institution for adults with developmental disabilities in Germany. And it was very brutal, it was very rough. You could never turn your back on anyone because you could be attacked. It was just a spiral of violence. Nobody wanted to stay. People stayed for a day and then they thought they couldn't handle it anymore. And then I came to L'Arche, and when I was at the institution, I thought, okay, what I learned in college, that's just theory, it doesn't work. And then before coming to Wavecrest, I was in Seattle for 9 months. And it was just a total opposite world. For instance, in the institution, if somebody had a seizure during a meal, somebody else would grab their food and eat it. And there, I remember one of the first days, somebody fell over with a chair, and another core member said, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And I thought, wow, this is amazing. It does work. And that whole thing with respect and taking time to be with each other, and it's just very, very profound.
I think for me, I agree with what you've both said, and I love traveling too, Chris. That was fun. And I think just the mission of L'Arche really speaks to me, and you see it lived out daily. It's not just something that we say. It's 100% true. Like living together, living with mutual respect for each other, and it's just a really great atmosphere that just is something that I totally believe is what we are called to do. And I think I just love the honesty and the genuine environment that our community is, and I think all large communities have that type of environment where we're not faking anything. It's just things that are normally like against what our society thinks that we should say to people, even people that like your coworkers. Like if you're having a bad day, you feel like you can't really talk about it at work, and just when you're feeling sad and you feel like you're not supposed to say that. I just feel like we're all really honest with each other and very vulnerable with each other, and there's just not that like facade that you have to put on, and I think that that's really special. And I think we saw that a lot this last year as one of our core members, Terry, was struggling with Alzheimer's, and we all were really deeply affected by this. And I feel like if I had been in a different environment, I would have held on to a lot of those feelings and emotions, but instead, like Kathy and Chris and I got to share in that together in a really hard time in our life.
Even Jazz.
And John too, who are also core members at Lush.
Yeah.
And Terry too.
Yeah. Whenever we'd hear her cry out because she was like in so much pain, and I thought, oh God, I wish I could do something to relieve her pain and suffering. And Jazz felt the same way.
Yeah, we shared in our helplessness of the situation.
Yeah. So in that way, right now she's in a place, she's happy, She's not in so much pain. She's getting the help that she needed. The problem with her was she needed the type of help that we couldn't give. It was just beyond us. So that's why. Other than that, she'll always be a part of us. You know, even when a family member leaves the house or the nest, we're always family. You know, we're always able to come back home to visit, you know.
And if that does happen in a large community where the care that someone needs is more than can be provided, the community really stays in contact and visits and so a very intense relationship. So it's not like, okay, they're clients and they're out of there, but really, as Kathy said, it's family and we're there for each other.
And it was a long, Terry recently moved out around the same time that I did, but she is still close by in a different facility. But it was a really long decision that we made with a lot of, we tried everything to keep her there. And I think that that's something that you might not have seen in a different type of environment. Just she felt like, you know, our sister, and it was really hard for us to finally make that decision, but knowing that it was the best for her.
I'm the only female core member now. God help me with all the boys. Testosterone alone. So now I guess I have them all to myself, right?
But you have a boyfriend.
Of course.
Just reminding you.
Oh. All to myself to manipulate. Oops, did I say that? No, seriously though, I mean, the guys at the house and I are really good friends. And yeah, I do have a boyfriend. But it's okay to have male friends.
Yes, I know.
They're like the brothers I never had. I
Well,
have a brother-in-law, but
Me too.
you know,
That's
it. I don't have brothers by blood. Even though we're not family by blood, we are family by spirit. We all have the same spirit. Even though we may be of different religious persuasions. You know, for example, I'm the only non-Catholic as far as females go, and then we have Jazz. He's the only Mormon. I think Kara, but I'm not sure what her persuasion is.
Yeah.
I'll have to find out. Basically, when I make friends, I don't give a fig about religion. I don't care if they worship teddy bears, let alone pandas. I mean, my God, I have a teacher that's pantheist. In other words, pagan. But that's fine. She's a very good person, very good teacher, and she has so much to give. You know, she's respectful of other people's beliefs.
What Kathy is saying too is it's so amazing to experience in L'Arche because of the international and interfaith aspect of it. You could all come together, and whereas among the assistants, that's the technical name for those who are not the core members, if you're from different parts of the world, that can still be kind of like, ooh, I'm not so really sure about it. And it's the core members who are so welcoming. They don't care what you do, where you're from, they just see who you are. And that's so liberating and powerful.
Hey, you could be purple, green, yellow, polka dot, checkered, whatever. We don't care. It's It's what you have inside you that matters.
Other folks have any questions?
Quick question.
For whom?
Maybe for all of you.
Oh, okay.
I'm wondering if there are daily or weekly or monthly or yearly practices or traditions that mark your life together that help make it feel like a family.
Okay. Let's see. We have Monday night prayer night, which is on the, I think it's the last Monday,
I
isn't
think
it?
it's the third Monday
Oh,
of each
third
month, once a
Monday.
month.
Whichever. As I said, we have community gatherings every second Saturday, and we're having one this Saturday. And it's our celebration of Thanksgiving. So we got that. We celebrate Christmas, you know, together in one way or another. You know, we have fun. We do Easter. That's always fun.
And if I can interject here, it changed over time too. Like in the beginning,
Yeah.
you have to imagine there are people all of a sudden, they move in and you're like, okay, I don't really know you, so you have to figure out and grow together. So in the beginning, we spent a lot of time together. We spent all the holidays together, except Thanksgiving. And so there was a pre-Thanksgiving meal with all of the core members and their families. But all the holidays we spent together. And it was only gradually as people felt more comfortable and, you know, they have their own lives. And I think, okay, well, go to your families and so. But in the beginning, it was like really bonding and the family time. And, yeah. But do you remember that, Chris? Do you remember the pre-Thanksgiving dinners we had?
Oh, yes.
I remember Christmas Day.
If Chris wants to say something.
Yes, those were fun times.
Do you remember Christmas Day when we had the gathering? Do you
Oh,
remember?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, those were fun times.
We also eat dinner as a community every night.
Mm-hmm.
So whoever is there usually joins. So that's something that is a daily tradition, and we pray and sing together.
Yeah, we also eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day.
Oh, we hope
Almost
so.
every day.
I would think
Every
we
day.
hope. I would think that we would. Yeah.
That's a question.
Yes.
I've got a question too. So Kathy, you've mentioned that you go off to school, and Chris, I think, as well. And Chris, you also were talking about your basketball team.
Yeah.
So could both of you, both the core members and these people who have been assistants, maybe tell us a little bit about what kind of an average day is like in your community in terms of where the different people go and what they do and who's taking care of the house and who's got activities. So basketball, school, other.
Depends on the day
Yeah.
and who's working, because it's not always the same one that's working. Sometimes there's two, sometimes there's one.
Well, it depends on the core member too, because you all
Yeah.
have such different lives.
True.
None of them do the same thing.
True.
So
Sometimes sometimes we stay home if we have like a doctor or dental appointments.
Sometimes.
yeah,
Sometimes.
a typical day would be everyone wakes up around the same time, and then we eat breakfast together, sort of. Kathy's likes to take her time, which is good. And
And nothing goes well with a book and a hot cup of tea.
true. And then everyone goes off to their different day activities. So our house is actually closed during the day for the most part. None of the core members had stayed home until recently unless they were sick or, like Chris said, have a doctor's appointment or something that morning. So Kathy and Chris, like they said, they go to school, which do you want to talk a little bit about what your school is like?
Okay, my
Yes, I'll go
school
for the
is
expert,
like this. My classes are different from Chris's. One, because I sing in a band called the High Hopes. So, on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, I'm in band practice. Tuesday and Wednesday is all day, practically. Friday, half day. So, if I have, Mondays and Thursdays are usually my non-band practice days. So, basically, although we are currently working on a Christmas production, which will be on the 8th of December.
Chris, do you want to share a little bit about Hope and what you do there?
I also go to school with Kathy, but I also do computers. I also do acting, painting, and handbells,
He's also in the school choir, by the way.
and school choir.
So Kathy and Chris both go to Hope, which is a performing arts center for people with disabilities, which is fun for them. They've been going there for a long time.
Well,
Go ahead.
Kathy's been going there longer than one.
Yeah.
And you travel all over with that
Yeah.
school.
Yeah. Depending on where we're booked.
Yeah.
Whoever books us. So, again, when my performing schedule happens, if I have a gig on a day that we have community gathering, well, then I miss community gathering because the show comes first.
And it's really intense, so this is a school specifically for arts for people with developmental or intellectual disabilities, and there's some music savants in there, and it's really high quality of the things that they do. Some play several instruments. Kathy has a beautiful voice, and Chris, you are a beautiful singer too, so it's
Oh, thanks.
high quality
I
what they do
appreciate that.
there. Yeah.
And then John and Jazz are other core members who are not here. John goes to a different program.
Yes,
And go
and John goes to No Limits place. Let's see. John is not very musical. His strength is electronics. As far as I'm concerned, he's a genius in that, but maybe he doesn't see himself as such. But both John and Jazz can actually do DJing, so that's pretty darn good.
Yeah, John's school is more of like a learning life skills type program. Yeah.
And Jazz, he can play piano, he can sing, but I think he much prefers his job at Bounce U. He loves children, so he works with them.
Yeah, Jazz used to go to Hope with Kathy and Chris, and now he works, I think 3 days a week at Bounce U, which is like
Very
a
close.
birthday party place with bounce houses and slides and stuff.
Yeah,
And he
preschool,
loves it.
I think, to 8
Yeah, I think so.
at least, I
And
think.
then he also is a member of the Mormon church, and so he helps out at the Mormon temple. So that's what everyone is doing during the day. He also loves Disneyland, so he goes to Disneyland Sundays.
I think he should move in. Maybe he could live door to Mickey Mouse.
I think
Mickey
the rent
and
would
Minnie
be very
Mouse.
expensive.
Yeah.
True, But I think maybe he could live with them.
Uh-huh.
I'm sure they would love to have him.
So that's a typical day. Everyone comes back and everyone rides a bus. So they ride on a bus to school, to wherever they're going, they come back. And then everyone has some downtime to relax.
Sometimes, depending on the day.
Depending on the day, yeah. Because Kathy and Chris both do physical and occupational therapy at
Yes.
our house,
Yeah.
Yes.
which is always fun.
Yeah.
And then we eat dinner together and we cook together, and then
Yeah.
the rest of the night is just kind of spent doing whatever we feel like.
Yeah.
And so that's a normal day, weekday.
Typical.
Tuesday and Thursday nights, I love it. Because then I get on the computer and I can play computer games or sometimes look up things.
That's how we can also see how things have changed over the years. Like when I first moved in 2004, there was hardly any of that, and the whole thing was cell phones, and also age-wise, people were younger, and now there are more needs, and so it changes, really.
I think the only one that doesn't have a cell is Mr. Chris, but he prefers it that way.
Might be a smart move.
That way I won't get into a confrontation with my teachers.
Well, quite frankly, if you use your head and just remember to turn off your phone, you're fine.
So a lot of people don't do that, that's a
That's a
problem.
problem here too.
Yes, I agree.
I keep mine off.
It's a good move.
Any?
Maybe one more.
Yeah, so both Kathy and Chris, you mentioned your families and the decision to come to the large community. I was wondering, to what extent are your families still involved?
Yes.
Oh,
Are there
they're
opportunities
very
for them?
involved.
Yes,
They're very involved. Yeah, both my mom and dad are, although Mom, God bless her, she left us in 2014. So, breast cancer. So, but she's still with us in a way here.
And your dad is really involved.
Very, very involved.
Yeah.
We go to see Mom at Fairhaven. Yeah. Yes?
So why don't we, I already asked.
You sound like such a welcoming community at your house. So I'm imagining that sometimes you may even have your family members over there come to visit there, or you may go to visit them. Is that what,
Yeah.
like you talked about that big Thanksgiving celebration? I could just imagine a number of people there.
Let me tell you, if I want to see aunts, cousins, or even my sister, I have to take 2 airplanes just to do that.
Oh.
Where does your sister live?
My sister lives in Switzerland. The
And my
rest
sis-
of my cousins and aunts and
Oh,
uncles, Ohio. Probably the only one close by that I know of that's in Oregon is my Uncle Jimmy and my Aunt Cheryl. They're Mormons.
Do you want to give Chris a chance to talk?
Go ahead.
My mom and dad live close by. They live like not very far from where I am.
And
You know what?
when do they come to the house? They come quite often, don't they?
Yeah, we're trying to get a new get a new lawn and a new garden established.
Yeah. Chris's parents come every Thursday to do our yard work. They're very generous, and they come every week, and they do so much for us. And our grass is very dead, and they're trying to help us bring it back to life.
Yep.
And they also come for our gatherings almost every time.
Yeah, like at least every second Saturday, right?
Yeah.
Our gathering is like a time for all of the families of the core members to come together and families of assistants, and it's really nice because Kathy, like you were saying, although a lot of your family lives really far away, it's almost like the parents of other core members and all of our community members who come to visit with us, they're like family, so it's a really nice time.
And they've all been involved for so many years and kind of know each other and walk with each other for all these years. It's beautiful. It's like really extended family.
But also, it gives us a chance, and other people a chance to meet us, and for us to meet them. So we're practically breaking bread with each other, and in the way that Christ would like.
So that leads into the question I was going to ask is, you talked a little bit about how each of you arrived at the L'Arche community. What's the process for accepting new members into the community, either new assistants or new core members? I would imagine that there's a lot of interest, right?
Well, there's a waiting
compared to the
list.
space, right? So, but given how
Open another house.
much of a family you are, is there sort of an interview process, or is there some sort of process that you guys have together before accepting
Oh, yeah.
new people into the community? What's
So-
that like?
Well, first of all, there's a waiting list, and then people often, they come to a gathering, and you get to know them. You go over to the families, like I remember visiting you before you moved in, and just see their,
She came to
their
my parents' house in
Yeah.
Diamond Bar.
Yeah. And then there's also, it has to be compatible with the regional center. They're the placement agency. And there's a certain level that the home is. So there's the agency side, and it needs to match. But it's a process, and people come over for a while, and you see how do they interact. As Kathy was explaining, she and Cindy came, they stayed overnight for a weekend, came to different gatherings, and you go on an outing together, and just you kind of see how it plays out.
Cindy and I were roommates, and I remember our first time into Tacoma. Cindy and I were at each other's throats.
You were,
We were fighting, and you were saying, "You're not going to do this in front of Tacoma Hope."
yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, they really were like cat and dog.
Yeah, guess who was the dog and who was the cat?
You missed that part of the movie. There were two core members who were cat and dog, and I had to think of you.
Oh, I saw it already.
Yeah.
I saw it on the premiere.
What about becoming an assistant, Kimmy? What was that process like?
That process, it starts with an application. I think the like core members, there's a long waiting list, but assistants, we always need them. It's not like there's a lot of people rushing to the door, and so they really needed someone, and it happened to work out really great with when I was moving back.
Wow.
So I applied. I had already met Terry and Cynthia, who used to work in our community, so they knew me. I had actually seen a post on Facebook from like a former Jesuit volunteer who was formerly an assistant, Spencer, who used to live in our house. And so I messaged him, ended up applying, and then I had a Skype interview because I was living in Alabama. And then I was visiting for a graduation sometime in the year, so I came over for a dinner. And kind of got to know the core members, and then I moved in. That was in May, and I still had a bit left with my my year of JDC, so I didn't end up moving until September. But so it was kind of a long process, and they were waiting for me to arrive. So the application process is a lot easier for assistants, and there's so many L'Arches that need people that you can either apply directly to a L'Arche community, like I did directly to L'Arche Wavecrest, or you can apply to L'Arche USA, and they can place you anywhere within L'Arche that has a need. Or you could even apply to some international communities that accept people from the US, and you could possibly go abroad and work in a community in a different country.
If you observe I am a walking, talking advertisement. How do you like my back?
Yeah.
It's really amazing because assistants come from all over and can go different places. When I was living in Mobile, we had assistants from Germany, assistants from different parts of Africa, from all over the US that had all just applied to L'Arche USA and had been placed in this community. So a lot of the communities are very diverse and where their assistants are from. There's a lot of people from Europe that decide to move to the US and become a L'Arche assistant.
Karen was one of them.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes,
I heard that you're hoping to open another house in California.
you've heard right.
Yeah,
Where would that be?
We are in the middle of fundraising, and we've been fundraising for a while. I think it's projected to open next summer, hopefully. So it's really exciting. It's
Fingers crossed.
yeah, fingers crossed, praying.
Would it be in the same area?
Hopefully in the same area. I don't think we know what city yet. Ideally, it would be as close as we could get it. So.
Yeah, and then until you have either a second home or some sort of a workshop, you're still technically a probational community, because with one house, well, it is community in a sense, and yet it's a lot easier than if you have two and you can share resources and you help each other out. And so until you reach that point, you're still at a very fragile position within L'Arche. And when you think that we opened in 2004 and there's still no second home yet, but you wanted to be close enough that you can really be together. I mean, in Seattle, you're within walking distance, and which is wonderful. And sometimes, in Kansas, they have houses that are right next to each other, and so.
Wow.
But it's really hard also on assistance if you have only one house, because
True.
first of all, there's the filling in, and then for just to have your own life. And if you have a bigger community, there are assistants you can hang out with on your day off, and that can be very, very tough in a small community. You really have to make it on your own, and you have off when other people work and vice versa. I remember in the beginning, I worked every weekend, and so it's like, it's a miracle if I had like an entire weekend off. That happened maybe once a year or so. And it's really hard if you don't have that inner strength. You're not going to make it.
And that's a big challenge for our assistants at Wavecrest, is I think that's why we don't draw as many international assistants. And a lot of the people that become assistants are people who are local to Orange County or LA County, and that's not typical of a large community. And a lot of that is because there's only one house, and so it's really hard if you're an assistant, there's only maybe one or two other assistants, and they're always working when you're not working. And so if you don't have a community already, it's hard to connect into a community, especially if it's not one that's in a larger city, or you're not plugged into a church, or you don't have that connection or family around.
The bummer part is if there's only one assistant on, and you know, some people have this thing that they need to go to, then the people that really aren't into something are dragged along for the ride, whether they like it or not,
Yeah, it's a compromise.
which is a complete drag. So the more assistants, the better. The better it is, not only for the assistants, but for the core members as well. So I mean, if we get more assistances, it's a win-win situation there.
And if you have two houses, then what will happen, those who are active enough and want to go on an outing, they go, and then the others stay home, or if someone's on vacation. But with one house, and people don't realize, they think, oh, wow, you only have 5 people there to take care of, but you have to be there 24/7. They can never be alone in the house, and technically you're never allowed to shut down. So even if everyone goes away on vacation or the weekend, someone has to be on call, because it could be that Kathy decides, oh, I want to come back. Then you have to be there, and you can't just say we're closed. So it makes this like really really hard and from that point too.
Do you have volunteers? Or is that not something that can be done?
Well, there are volunteers, but then there's these licensing requirements,
Yeah.
and everyone who's alone has to be fingerprinted, and then there are also the licensing requirements that if there's something that someone is paid to do, you're not, technically not allowed to have a volunteer do it. So if you're very strict, technically a volunteer wouldn't be allowed to cook for you because that's in the job descriptions of the assistants. Whereas, it's like really pushing it, but it's certain things you cannot have a volunteer do. And unless they're really there regularly, it can be more of,
Like Susan.
work. Yeah.
Like Susan, she's in charge of the
Yeah.
volunteers. So she'll help out, with meal making. And some of them are really quite good.
We do have some more volunteers that maybe come for like a day, or there's students at Chapman, which is really close to us, so they are a part of a class that requires them to get service, so they come and hang out and play basketball or help with dinner, assist us with it. And so we have some volunteers like that, or days where volunteers come and help us do something to the house.
Or sometimes we have like a work day.
Yeah.
Like they clean the stuff.
Like sometimes LMU, sometimes Bethany, remember her?
Yeah.
Sometimes her and her church would help out, or Trinity. So I mean,
Well, speaking of food, I just found out that our food has arrived outside, so maybe we can continue the conversation and you guys can get some food and drinks, and other people here can get some food and drinks. Would you join me in thanking our panelists?
Awesome job, guys.